life amenities, things that the municipality would be responsible.
Had a great example in committee. We talked about the trail and how that can be perceived as both quality of life, but maybe more so economic development.
You can grab one.
I like
Yeah, okay. I was wondering why
Oh, thank you. Okay. Now I can be on the same page as everybody else.
Literally. So we were talking about the trail in committee and how that could be quality of life, but really it might be more of an economic development. A sidewalk is something that can impact everyday citizens every day. So a community center could impact similar way, whereas a trail might be more about economic development, visitation, that kind of thing, tourism. So some of these are going to bleed over into the other categories, but it's really identifying those amenities, those municipal amenities that you just said that really are quality of life for the everyday citizen. And if the community center fits in there with what we've learned, I mean, in my mind, it could, whereas something else might be tourism, economic development.
Yeah.
I think it just makes it easy for us to now to break it up in digestible pieces where we can talk about it, formulate. Really, there's almost separate plans, but at some point, some overlap. At some point, you got to make priority decisions on all those, as opposed to just throwing it all and saying, "Well, we've got a budget. Where do we want to spend our money?"
So let's pick out, I guess, out of this list on pages 10 and 11, which one we feel fall under quality of life, and then we'll go through each one of those.
And there could be some that we did not discuss that Saturday that sure pop up. I know in committee that's how it turned out, things that we didn't consider that day.
I mean, I definitely think the community center completion falls in under quality
Yeah,
of life.
absolutely.
So even if we may not agree on a plan yet, or we all have our own thoughts, but I think what I feel is there's a consensus that that would be a quality of life category. And on that Saturday, I think we all agreed that completing the community center was one of the top two priorities. I mean, it was like a tie, I think, for number one. So we're all at least on that page that fits within what we're talking about.
And for some reason, it landed in economic development. That's where it landed in the out.
On our
yeah.
I think I feel it's quality of life, the way that it's been presented.
I definitely think that just looking through there, the infrastructure stuff, you almost have to leave it. How that is. I mean, is there any point to even leave, like, evaluate golf course operations on here? We got 0 votes for it.
Well, I mean, a couple things. I think every time we revisit it, nothing ever goes away. I mean, if you look at, maybe I read through this and maybe I'm mistaken, but if you look at one of them was the consider second substation.
Yeah.
And didn't we just approve that?
No.
Oh, was that, so this is additional beyond the...
We just approved the
Engineering
for a
Study
study.
Right.
Study.
Yeah,
We haven't approved.
Right, but we started down the process, right?
Yeah.
So I think if I remember the discussion was, if you do this, you don't want to waste your money, you need to follow through.
Correct.
So I believe the intent was to follow through unless something happened. My point being, just the reason I use this as a point is, nobody put that on their list on that Saturday. However, it was important enough to move forward on it. So this list is a snapshot in time, and it may change every month when you come in and you know what, I got some feedback. And so we can't just snapshot it and move. We got to, the things that are there every time, they stay, right? But things may come and go. So I guess my point is that I wouldn't take a no sticky markers on that Saturday as a reason to leave it out. Unless tonight everybody says, yeah, let's still leave it out.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So then, I guess I want to get clear. Are we just going through this list then and picking out the stuff that we want in the quality of life bucket?
And then other things that
Yeah,
come
I
to
think
our
it's a
minds.
first start,
because-
yes, and then prioritize them, and some will just be at the bottom that may never get to. I mean, I think that's the only way to approach it, from a discussion perspective.
Okay. I mean, I almost say trail development's quality of life.
Yeah, I agree with Brian. It falls under, it's quality of life
I
and
think you listed them
tourism.
both.
There'll be a lot of citizens that will use it.
Right. But
But will it impact everyday citizens every day? Like a community center could impact everyday citizens every day.
Yeah.
Like a sidewalk. And I would include, since we're in the process of sidewalks, we have future goals with the sidewalk program. Maybe we can put that in there because that's something we're going to have to look at and plan.
And the quality of life.
Well, I think sidewalks are quality of life because impact everyday citizens every day.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things that I learned through MPO this last week is they were talking about safe routes to school, and they have Eudora and Lawrence and Baldwin. Their goal for 2025 is for all of your safe routes to all your schools to be paved with sidewalk, to be filled in. We're at 90%, and we've got till 2025 to meet that goal. Eudora, for instance, they were in the 80% range, so it's not economic development.
So far, community center, sidewalks, trail, city lake, are we on all of them? Everybody good with those as we go here? And some of these will be on both. The trail will be on quality of life, it'll be on economic development, right? So it may be top priority on economic development, it may be fifth. You know,
Right.
so then you go, but you do it because of the economic development, right? So you kind of know where it lands on both and how to approach the citizens, you know?
So are we thinking far off into the future too with this?
Yeah.
Or- So pool.
Yeah.
So Julie, you feel free to talk about this, but we hear about the pool even in the middle of winter.
Yeah, at our last meeting, Chris was saying that they didn't have the panels in yet for the pool because of COVID, basically. Delaying parts being, so, but, I kind of quizzed him about how long he thinks the life of the pool is. And he didn't really give me an answer. We kind of talked around it a little bit, but I think eventually that's going to be something we have to think about.
So you're, I feel like it just got built.
How old is
Right.
that pool?
20 years.
25, I heard.
25 is kind of what we played with in the committee, and wondering, do you have 25 more years in it?
Uh-huh.
It doesn't seem like you would, and I don't know that means brand new or reconfigure, but we talked about that in Public Works. And when we think about asking for a sales tax ballot, it might be perfect for a project, but it might take the place of something in the future that you need to ask for too. So just balancing all of that out. I don't know that there's a good answer to how much life it has left in it. But it seems like I know every Public Works meeting I've been to this year, and Julie knows it too, it comes up almost every single time. There's something that needs done or replaced, and then we've funded those things throughout the year too.
So are we keeping 4 then, or are we just adding quality of life? Because I don't know how you take away one or the other.
The municipal operations only had a couple, at least in what she bubbled up, but I think we're changing that one to quality of life, and everything in municipal operations will land somewhere else.
Okay.
They were already, yeah.
Okay, so what other items do you guys see under quality of life?
Just the other point I'll make on the pool and everything we're talking about. I mean, if we do actually have an economic development program, we're actually trying to grow the community, you know, projection wise, we need to make sure, you know, just the sheer population size is going to drive, you know, the size of the amenities you offer, right? And a pool is a good example. You know, a pool would support a gardener is much bigger deal than, you know, what we have. But as we look out, whenever we think the new pool is in, we got to kind of project, same with everything we talk about, is it going to support the population that we plan to have, you know, in the community? Because you kind of got to get it right. do it.
Right. We used to have it on the CIP. I don't know that it's on there any longer.
I think it still is. I think it still is.
And I think they had $4 or $5 million on there, but I always remember being told that that was just a placeholder.
Right.
And maybe kind of a thought as to what it might be, but there was no research put into that. It's just to have that in your head. It's still on there then, so it's something to think about. But I don't know that that number is accurate as to what we would need.
Do we have projected population numbers, or is that more of a school board focus? They kind of forecast the population, or maybe?
Well, it'd be the census, I mean.
Yeah, as soon as we get our this year's census. No, I mean, we haven't really forecast. Being honestly, our city really hasn't grown in population in about 20 years. We've been between about 44, 48. We're thinking we're over 5,000. We don't know that. So our population hasn't grown, and the school population really hasn't grown.
Actually, the school has been losing.
They're slightly down in the incoming students. This is what the superintendent has told us. And so
They did a study before the intermodal was done.
right, yeah, that would be the
And
last.
that was the last study for the area, and they projected, I could probably dig out the book, but they projected growth that never happened, and a variety of reasons. I think part of the issue is if we don't add living space here, we're not going to grow by definition, right? It's pretty simple math, right? No other opportunities for people to move here, they're not going to move here. So it has to be planned to grow if we want to. But part of the plan would be, we're going to do this, we're going to grow, and then that's going to affect all these other quality of life things we're doing, sidewalk needs, everything else. But you got to plan to do it, or it's going to stay where it was the last 20 years. And maybe that's what the council wants.
Well, we do have a growth, we do have a plan. It hasn't been studied by the planning commission for a while, but there is a plan.
So when you say a plan,
A growth plan,
Okay.
strategic growth plan for where housing would go, where commercial would go, where multifamily would go, all that stuff.
okay, but there's really no execution plan to how you actually make it happen. This is what could happen, but there's no plan to make it happen. Is that fair?
That's fair, but I almost think, that would definitely fall under probably the economic.
Yeah, it would.
For sure.
Yeah.
Which we have that kind of up there. We have that under there.
Yeah, that's where it would fall. But my point was on this discussion is we need to think about, all this stuff is so interrelated, right? So if we really want to plan to grow a little somewhat, we need to think about what we're going to do there, what that's going to cost, and then what that means in 10 years from a population perspective. So there's a lot of conversation we had on all this, and every time you talk about one, it impacts something you just talked about. That's why it has to be continuous.
Right.
It just does.
Okay. Any other items under quality of life?
I know we've talked about dog park. Is that something that fits in?
Yeah, I think there's
Quality of life. It's not really economic development.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you have to put in there, the golf course. I mean, there's a lease with a finite term on it, and it needs to be part of the city plan, right? If that's a quality of life piece, whether it's green space or whatever, we got to plan for what we want to see that happen in that space.
You probably need to put parks on quality of life on that.
Yep.
Clause directly in there.
Yeah, green space, parks.
Probably the library.
Yep. We probably should have done a better job of prepping what the topics were tonight. I mean, that's why we have to revisit it. And as you go between now and the next time, you're going to think of a few things that you didn't add. You got to be able to add them back. It can't be, final decision, right? It's got to be.
It's a living.
It's a strategic plan. It's not a strategic ordinance.
Strategic.
We could almost put brick streets being repaired and, varying the utility lines too, as far as quality of life.
I was thinking about that. They do kind of lap over. Brick streets are obviously infrastructure all over it, but a lot of them, a a lot of the, I guess, eagerness to redo the brick streets is for the ambiance.
Right.
Yeah, the only thing that I would caution, just from remembering talking to that lady, is you don't want to get too into the weeds on each one of them, because then you can make an argument on every single one of them. That's
Yeah.
quality of life. If we don't have staff there, that's going to fall under quality of life, you know. So
That's
For sure,
fair.
yeah, I think that probably has to exist.
I'm going to be honest. I think that's plenty under that topic. I mean, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And like you guys said, some of these are that's 11 topics. Some of them are going to go into, other.
Dog park could fit into parks and green space.
Yeah.
Yep.
So really, to me, that kind of brings us back to the ones that are right in front of us, which is the community center. Sidewalks is we're continuing on that goal. Trail, that's probably further down in the future. It's looking.
I think, the trail, and I'll just stop you right there, just because I feel like the trail is one of those projects that is going to be 10 years in the making. I mean, as we get, see funding come out of the state or something, or, if we tried pushing it through the legislature, we'll probably try that again as far as with our new rep, but different things to try to get that taken over by the Kansas Wildlife and Parks and Tourism so that they can fund that out, kind of like they did on the Ottawa Trail. So I think that's definitely long term.
And it's really not a budget item right now.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, it's not even in the CIP for us. And our intention was never for us to fund it. Our intention was always to go out and find those funding places from the state or the federal government to build that outside of the city limits. But yeah, I agree. Do you dance to that at night?
I actually like shudder because it usually means warm.
But I agree with you, Brian. I think we almost need to start talking about these items and going down the list.
I mean, some of them are right in front of us, like the community center. Some of them, like City Lake, is right in front of us, but we don't
Yeah.
sometimes ever want to tackle it
It's
because
a tough one to address.
It is.
It is, but we're not going out there with shovels digging up the lake. We're talking about evaluating the
Right.
lake,
Right.
which is, I mean, that's
We do
not a
need to
budget
start
issue, but
somewhere.
we can at least get a grasp of what we want to do with it out there.
Right.
I kind of feel like that almost has to be inching toward the top
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
because it's only getting worse.
Well, let's just kick it off with the community center. Let's
Okay.
talk about that since we just talked about it on Saturday.
Yeah.
Saturday.
Yeah, I think it's obviously the biggest hot button issue.
Well, I think, is it the top of the list for this council that the next thing we want to tackle? It sounds like it is, but I don't want to put any words in. Of this list, is this the one thing that we're going to work on and make happen before all the others?
I mean, as I'm looking at this list, sidewalks is underway. It's been an ongoing thing. And then, trails, like we talked about, would be long-term. City Lake, we haven't even began to tackle that one. And, parks, again, is just kind of ongoing. So, in my opinion, I think the community center it's the one that we need to address now.
And I think on that Saturday, not the Saturday at the work session, but our retreat, that was one we
Right.
put some sort of doc.
Yeah, it was high on the
Yeah,
list.
it was,
So I guess what's everybody's thoughts and rubs and everything else? I'm gonna comes around to the community center.
Who wants to start?
I'll start, whatever. Again, I know I've talked to a lot of you guys, some about it, some more than others, unfortunately, because I see some more than others, but I feel like it's a good project. I feel like it's been vetted well. I feel like the community outreach response has been very good. I don't deny that we have some in our community that don't like it, but I can say with a great deal of confidence after all our meetings that I think there's a large portion of our community that do like the project. That's my very, I don't know what your flight at, Scott, my 10,000 foot view, to start at that. But I do feel like it's a good project. Some people will disagree, and that's okay. That's part of democracy and having those disagreements and those discussions. I like the method that's been taken, and I don't question some of them. I just think it's a rare opportunity that we have to be able to be
Keep going up, and not going up a little, they're going up significantly. So we have two opportunities to save a significant amount of money by doing it now as opposed to waiting.
But I understand that, but, if you look at your budget, I'd like to have a new car, and it'll cost more if I wait a couple of years, but I don't have the money to buy a new car. So, I'm looking at it from the perspective of somebody that's struggling in our community, and we're asking them to pay more for groceries. And maybe they can't go to all, like some restaurants, and go to the store here for things that are expensive. Asking them to.
And that's why I'd like to see the citizens have the opportunity to vote and tell us that. If they want to spend an additional 50 cents when they go spend $100 at the grocery store here for a community center, or if they'd rather save 50 cents. That's why we want it on the ballot.
It's very valid what you bring up, Julie, and it's certainly something that's crossed my mind. Something that really brings me a lot of reassurance about this one. This community center would serve the populations in most need. I think a lot of community centers, we talked about out west, a lot of ones around here, you have to pay a fee. There's a monthly fee that you have to pay. This is free to everybody, and so it could be a really huge quality of life jump for those populations that couldn't afford to pay some sort of community center fee that would be an alternative option.
Those people that can't afford, to pay additional tax, they could also be served by this community center in so many ways. There's opportunities to, provide harvesters out of that community center, or for kids to go there after school. The possibilities are endless. So I'd like to think that, we're not necessarily taking away from the citizens as much as we're providing for them.
I'll add to that a little bit. Just listen to Corey and talk. A lot of things were just running through my mind. One was I don't like taxes. Nobody does. You don't like paying extra taxes or anything like that. That's why I like the vote and put it in front of the citizens. Secondly, Scott, you can correct me if I'm wrong because I don't remember my years exactly, but wasn't it around 2008 when the school district put out a vote for the new schools? Wasn't that 2007, 2008 in that?
Yeah.
Because I remember going to the ballots and voting
later,
for it
yeah.
and thinking, man, this is going to be tough during a recession. But again, I think that's what democracy is for. If the majority of our citizens feel that this isn't the right time, then we're going to hear that, and I'm okay with that, and I'm okay with that decision that they make. I agree with Corey's point that, you know, I like this project because it's not going to charge a fee to the kids, and you know, the underserved youth in our community now will have a safe place to go and a safe place to congregate and be active and do whatever program ends up in that. So yeah, but on the other hand, I get your point. I hear you. I hear that, you know, there are some people struggling, but I think on a project, you could almost always ask that question. You could almost always, because I think people are always struggling on some level. It may not be during a pandemic. It may just be, you know, during a housing crisis or any other time, or, you know, the intermodal shuts down. You know, there's regional, there's national, and there's worldwide reasons that some of that happens. So I hear that. I definitely hear that point. But I wanted to clarify that, because that was for some reason I think that's when that school was happening.
It's all a blur. So I just want to echo, Corey, what you said. I absolutely agree. I think the first decision is community center. It seems to be the top of the priority list for this council to figure that out. I guess my concern is, you know, if we got to that point, you know, now, and we didn't have a building donated to us, we would go through a planning scenario of what do we think this community needs. We would include the school district, we would include all these quality of life groups to say, what do we think we need, combined with what do we think we can afford? So it's that conversation, right? We would come up with something. My question is, I'm not so sure it would look like this. I don't think it would. I think it would be something more than this. But because we have this building, we're saying this is going to be our community center, because we got this building. And that might be the right decision to make. My concern is it's the cart before the horse. We're approaching this on how do we leverage that building, and we're taking the top priority of quality of life that we have and putting it in there. We're not going to be able to address it again probably for another 10 plus years. So this is it, right? This is the decision that people are going to live with for a long time. My concern is that right there, and I share Julie's concern. We don't know what the economics of this pandemic is going to be, you know, in the next 6 months. It still hasn't played out. You know, I get the whole cost of construction, cost of rates. That's never a good reason to rush into something. It just never is, because you don't know what's going to happen to the rates. You're guessing, and to move quickly to guess that it's going to be in your favor is just as reckless as moving quickly because it goes the other way. So that's something to think about, but it's not the reason to go quickly. If everything else isn't already in place, if everything else is already in place, of course you go quickly. But that's my concern, is that this community center isn't what we would come up with if we weren't trying to fit it into this building.
Well, I guess I have a couple arguments to those points. One of them being that, you know, I'm hearing two different that our community may be struggling financially. We may have a population, but then we may need a bigger community center. Well, we know for a fact that a bigger community center is not going to be supported by just a sales tax. It can't. I mean, this building alone is going to, just to build this square footage of building, I mean, Jay's told us that it would cost more than twice as much as what this project is going to cost us there. So I get that. The other part is, you know, and I'm just going to put this out on the table, is the discussion of this being rushed. It hasn't been rushed. This has been being worked on by a citizen group for a year. They went through a due diligence process. They did get community feedback on what they would like to see in the building through the online surveys. And is that everybody's number one approach? No, I'd like to have 10 meetings in person. But they did the best they could with what they have. We have had in-person meetings. We did meet with the school board as well. The group did. And again, I've only been there to observe and answer questions from the group, but they've done the legwork on it. So I do believe that they did take in as much of the community thing. I mean, everybody wants an indoor swimming pool. I mean, that's the other elephant in the room. Yeah, everybody would love that. But even on the one that was planned 4 or 5 years ago, that was cost prohibitive, and the costs aren't going to ever go down. They never do. So that would just be my.
Well, let me respond to both those points. So, I guess the point you made was, well, if we can't afford, if we're afraid that we can't afford what we proposed, we certainly can't afford anything more. I guess I would say to you then, if what we believe we need, we can't afford, now's not the time to do it. And that's typically how you make those decisions, in that this is what we believe we need, so we may have to save for it for several years. We may have to put in the plan to budget for it. So my point is, do you wait for what you think you need, or you do what you can because that's all you can do today? So that's just my response to that. Two different ways to look at it. And then I don't doubt that this advisory committee did tremendous work. I don't know how much input they got from the community. I don't know how much input they got from the other stakeholders. And I certainly, all I know is when it came to the council in August, it was fully baked and done. It was like, here it is, and that's fine if all these stakeholders felt comfortable that this is part of what we want, get on board. I'm not hearing that from all the stakeholders. Don't know why, but I'm not hearing that this is what everybody can get behind and say that's what we need. And so I'm just kind of cautious, saying, why? Why is that? And we're always going to have people that don't like it. I get it, but having no visibility into the process, I've got to try to understand that before I can go, yeah, this makes sense. So that's where I'm at.
And I get that. I guess I'd also say, all right, say that that was a plan. I mean, similar to when we did Sullivan Square, we started out with a draft, and some things were changed. From the rec commission suggested an elevator that got put in. They suggested some changes to the office space that got put in, and I believe they had suggestions on moving and rearranging the bathroom areas, and that was completed as well. So there was some changes, and they've been asking at these meetings to every citizen that comes through, do you guys recommend anything? This is only a plan. Anything can be changed at this point. I'd also say, I mean, the question that's going to become in front of the council is going to be, not do you approve this building? Do you approve putting it on a ballot for the citizens to vote on? So
I understand that, but the city's on the hook to operate it from here on out. So we're adding it to the city, adding it to the city's role of things we got to go do. So it's not like vote and it's yours. It's like vote on it, and then the city's got to take care of it, and they've got to run it for it. So it's not that cut and dried, but I get it. I fully support the community having a vote on it. That's the right thing to do. I'm just questioning the timing of it that's been proposed in April. That's really only my concern. And then is this a community center that we all agree is what we need for the next 10 years?
yeah, and I think that was moved. I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, I wanted it in November. Brian was at those meetings, and he's like, "Oh, the rec also said no, we can't have it in there." So it was moved to April. So that was another thing that was changed on there. I mean, again, I by fault to myself, I'm used to business and used to making decisions.
Well, to be fair, at that point, that would have been almost a year. We'd been in the planning process, so November originally made sense at the time, but yeah.
This is Scott's point. I have to jump in because I kind of feel the same way. It was taken to the rec, their recommendations, and it was taken to citizens and their recommendations. It was never presented to the council until the last work session meeting that was, when Jay was here and Jay was there.
It was in August.
And that was the first time we even seen it, much less be able to put in our input. And I don't understand that, because we're gonna have to be the group that decides whether
I think.
I guess I'd argue that, I mean, everybody was given that opportunity as a citizen. I mean, the whole point of this was to make it a citizen-led committee, and so that's what we tried to do.
And
The first time I saw it, it was already planned out.
but like we've
It
said
was
before, that's a
preliminary
preliminary plan. That's still up for discussion. That's still, I mean, this is not set in stone, obviously, because it's not been voted on yet. We've said all along, when we present those plans, this is preliminary. We're looking for feedback.
And that continues on, by the way. I mean, that doesn't stop here. That doesn't stop with a vote to put it on a ballot. I mean, that continues for that 3 months and 2 months after that when all the bid letting gets put out. I mean, so there's it's definitely not set in stone by any means.
And we
Right.
didn't bring it in front of the council. We've been putting it out there to the community because that's who it's serving. It's not just going to be the 5 of us using that building. It's going to be the whole community. So getting their feedback and gathering that information was our priority.
My take on it, I love the project. I think the advisor group's done a tremendous job on it. But if you pay taxes in Douglas County, your tax dollar is going to the preservation of historic buildings. I don't think if we pass a sales tax, we are going to have those dollars available for us. Why didn't we pass a sales tax for the sidewalk and then go apply for federal tax money? I've had a grant administrator tell me, I got $5,000 worth of property tax money to create a cartoon character, basically, Lucy. She said, when this project is ready, come to us. We will help. You can apply. It's not a slam dunk. Grants are no guarantees. And a lot of times we're not eligible, as Glenn has told us, for some community development block grants. Baldwin just doesn't meet that standard. We might be on our way to meeting it with need, but things like that, these grants that we're talking about, I felt that these 11 months we could have been applying for that. We know the mold needs remediated. I felt like that would have been a great first step. That same grant that I applied for a cartoon character, we could have applied for that for. That would have been an instance of something we could have done, or for windows or something. There are so many groups that are ready to help out with this if we approach it that way. I don't know if we were to put this on a ballot and it passes. I've never heard of that going that way. If you get in the sales tax revenue, if you can still apply, you may be able to. I don't know. But from my experience, I would think that you could apply for these grants to get certain pieces done, and then you leverage that. The property tax money here from the citizens has already gone into this building with the roof. So you and I approved that with the last council. So you have a roof, you have a donated building from the Bauer family. Let's say that the county, this is your county tax dollar, let's say they kick in through the ACC and remediate the mold. All of a sudden, you have the leverage to go apply for a bigger grant. Much like the sidewalk, we made the commitment. The 3 of us made that commitment on the sidewalks when we bonded $1 million for the sidewalks. We took that and leveraged it into TA grants, which now have brought back how many millions have we brought back to the community? That's federal tax dollars. There are federal tax dollars that also support the preservation of historic buildings. So a brand new rec center does not apply for that. They can't. You get the tax credits, but I believe there's more that you could get through grants too. I could be wrong. We could get the sales tax. We could put it in. I don't know. I've just never heard of it working that way. I believe the county's going to ask, hey, we read this in the paper that you guys got your ballot issue passed. I don't really know if this is a need for you, but it's out there, and I think we can do it and still have the same project that was presented.
I would think if you had grants and stuff into it, that the citizens would be more likely to vote on it if you're not going to spend, you don't have to use all of that money for you've got grants and things like that.
But I think you're also missing a big funding portion of it is 20% to tax credits. 20% is
Which we'll always have. I mean, that never leaves the project. So whether it's grants funding the rest of it or sales tax, that is locked in stone as long as we follow the rules of SHPO, right? So we'll always have that benefit regardless of what we do. It doesn't have to be a sales tax funding it. I'm not against it, and I'm not going to stand in the way of people wanting to voice their vote. What I hope they can understand is that there's money we're leaving on the table possibly by doing that. I don't know that that's true, but to me, I feel that there would be money going to Lawrence and Eudora and Lecompton, and I am super competitive when it comes to that. And so I'm proud that our kids are at 90%, have a way to walk to school. I'd rather see that money from the county reinvested here. I've spoken with one of the elected people coming on the county commission about this. I've spoken with one that's already on there, and telling them about our projects that we have. We did that with the trail, and we got $90,000, I think it was, to support the development of the trail from the county. I don't think they're going to write a check for us for this. County's money's tight for them right now, but they do have a mechanism to support this. And the projects that I've seen over the last couple of years through the HCC, some of them it's a phased approach. So the trail that's out at the wheel ruts, that was like a $40,000 grant that was just given out this year to help support that. I realize that that's a slow approach. I realize that that might take longer. But the other thing I believe that it can do is pave the way to get that so that that sales tax is available for another project if it needs it. I'm trying to remember how the tax works, because it was going to be half cent for so long and then it drops off to a quarter. Is that right? Mm-hmm. That's not to say people wouldn't vote for another sales tax. I can't predict that, and I can't go tell a rec commission what is possible or not possible for them. I don't represent the entire school district. I only represent the citizens. So I feel kind of weird telling them that you'll never be able to get this building that you want. I don't know that. But I do feel that if we take this other approach, that there's a possibility that more things can happen for the community, not just one project or not just one group or entity. One last thing I'll say about this is we were told the history by Jay about the building itself. The WPA, the federal government, left this project. They walked away. They sent all their people to Lawrence, to Military Science Building, to go complete that at KU. This was completed brick by brick. You know, the floor, people were making sandwiches and a coffee line. I'm not saying that that's what we do. But if we take that same mentality also in a grant application to a federal grant, you're saying, hey, come back and complete your project. I don't know if that would fly. But
that's a way to look at it.
But I was thinking about this tonight, and I think everybody in this room wants the building to be saved. I don't think anybody wants to knock it down. And I know that when I voted to accept the donation, I felt if I didn't vote yes to accept it, then I was voting for it to be torn down at some point. That was what was told to us. The city would likely have to condemn the building. It was going to cost us quite a bit to go through that process. So it made sense in my mind. I know when I voted that way, that I was committed to seeing the project through. So I think what that also could do, if we think this through, is it might buy in. We might get more buy-in from groups if we say, we're taking this approach. This is just me. Once again, I'm not standing in the way of people in the democratic process. I just feel like maybe there could be a different way if we think it through. I don't want to say I would volunteer to start writing that grant tomorrow, because I've already written one, and they've given me money for sillier things than this. And they said that we're more into the preservation of buildings. The buildings that they preserved in this past year, I don't know that any of them were on the National Registry. And in their mission statement, it talks about that. If it's on the National Registry, that is like gold to them. So not promising, but, and once again, I don't know the answer. If you pass a sales tax, I don't know if that qualifies you or disqualifies you. To me, my personal feeling is that a piecemeal approach is not the worst thing for a historic building. You're in a historic house. I don't know if you just do it all at once. But,
No.
That's just me. I don't.
How would you propose to go answer that fundamental question about grants
Sales
after
tax.
sales tax? I mean, that seems to be, that would be nice to know. You know, if someone, is that something that is set in stone, or we just have to look at precedents to figure that out?
I've never heard of an example. Glenn, would you have any clue as to how that would work?
As far as, I'm not sure what grant you're applying. I mean, Lawrence itself has sales tax that is dedicated to recreation. That's how they fund Rock Chalk and all that. So, I mean, everybody in the county is, free to go there or whatever. So, I'm not sure if there's, why that would be competitive, why that would replace one or the other.
Yeah, I guess the way I'm looking at it, we bring up our sidewalk stuff. I mean, if we didn't dedicate that money, we wouldn't have got those grants.
Right. We've
Because-
dedicated the money to this building already.
Right.
If you apply it that way, if you say the citizens put I don't remember how much the roof was, 150, 100,000, 112.
130, somewhere in there, yeah.
Okay, so the citizens have done that. The property tax has gone to this building. That's leverage in my mind. The value of a donated building, that's leverage in my mind when you apply for a grant. That's just me. That's how I would start to piece it together. If you remediate the mold, all of a sudden you have the commitment of citizens of a county into this building. And so, and like Lynn said, I don't know either which ones I would go apply for, but I don't know that that's been researched. I don't know.
Well, I would think, what I think you're heading was is sort of preservation grants, which if we were just preserving the building, doing the mold remediation, but the project is to turn it into something else, like community center, recreation, all that. And I highly doubt they would pay for that sort of thing. They might help us on the windows and some other things that would return it to what it was.
Right.
But with the other things we're talking about to add into to use, I doubt they'd have any interest in that. So you'd have to fund that locally some way, somehow.
Well, I think there's community development block grants for community centers. I don't know that we would.
We would not qualify for
Yeah,
those.
and we've had that conversation
Yeah.
before.
Unfortunately, our low to moderate income just wouldn't qualify for that.
Well, but I feel that need is going. It's growing. I went to kindergarten roundup like 7 or 8 years ago, and I remember Dr. Elaine Wynn saying, in about 5 years, we're going to bash through that line of free and reduced lunches. And 65,000 meals were handed out when it was shut down. Kids weren't in school over the spring, and there's been more since then. And maybe we don't meet it right now, but by golly, I think we'll get there. But going back to the sales tax issue, I don't want to stand in the way of people deciding. I just want them to know. I will regret if we left money on the table. Even if it's $60,000 to remediate the mold, I just feel that we wouldn't qualify. That's me.
But see, and I agree with you, Brian. But I almost think that this is just my feelings. I don't believe that a sales tax is going to stop you from going out and getting grants. And the committee has spoken about that over and over again for the last year of, hey, if the citizens approve that, we still want to go get grants so that way we're not spending all the quality of life tax on this. If we can save money for the citizens, that's what we want to do. So I guess, the committee seems to agree with you as well, just based off of what they're saying.
So can we talk a little bit about the plans going forward as far as stakeholder involvement, just continuing to get, I'd like to have all the quality of life entities go, not exactly what I wanted, but I can support it because they understand the balance between what's fundable and passable and what is ideal. I'm just not sure, and maybe they don't ever get there, but I'm not sure they'd have that level of discussion as to everybody coming to agreement on, I hear what you want, but we don't believe it's passable because you're going to have to go to the school board and get to the mill levy increase in addition to this. So having that level of discussion, and maybe you have, I think you owe it to them to at least tell them why it's moving forward, and they can at least articulate that they didn't think the community could stomach paying more than what's put in front of them today.
I think it has been, Susan and Corey can talk about it. I'm guessing you're alluding to the rec.
No, it's a school board. It's, we go to school board and say, what programming do you not have space for you'd like to do today that you just can't? I mean, what does that look like? And then get that list, and if it fits, it fits. Hey, great, we got more. If it doesn't fit, we got to figure out why. So it's more of what's your strategic plan? What are you trying to get to? And does this building offer you an opportunity to do so?
When they presented to this school board, I know, there were some comments, not very many, and this was a couple weeks ago, so you guys chime in.
I wasn't able to go.
Corey was there, I guess. One comment we got is, thank you for doing sales tax and not property tax. That was one comment we got. They did not get into the specifics of what their needs were or anything like that. I think, again, everybody in their mind wasn't thinking about this building as a school district building, but as a community center building, more for the community. So that's why they were more concentrated on the citizens and gathering information from, everyday citizens that are
Which are in our school district. Majority.
correct. But we didn't want to concentrate just on bodies. We wanted to go
Right.
to the citizens direct.
Right. But to me, it's all about programming, what you can do. I mean, fundamentally, that's what I'm concerned about is actually getting stakeholder input and digesting it. So presenting to them is absolutely great, but that's not being part of the process. I mean, they have the opportunity to say, stop, wait, we disagree, but, if it's something that you're kind of already going down a path, they've got their own strategic plan, like, go for it, can you get them all in a room saying, how can we all put something together that's what we all could use? And maybe only a little bit for you, maybe a little bit more for you, but it's just that collaboration that in the end, they're like, it's not what I wanted, but I can see why we got there. And I don't think we're there, just based on the comments I'm getting from various, they may be the outliers that'll never get there, but not being a part of the process, I've got to bring it forward and just ask to make sure that's happened. If it has, keep going. So I mean, that's my concern.
What would you envision as far as, I know we're a little late in the game here.
Well, so that's the problem.
I
I would
understand, but-
envision at the very beginning, so I would envision that as we tasked this advisory committee to go out and find a suitable use for this building, they went out and did some polling and got some different ideas, and apparently the community center was by far the top idea. I think at that point, it's like, okay, we come together and say, this is what we've determined we think the citizens think this building should be used for. Now let's get all the stakeholders, because there's now a quality of life amenity that the city's going to have to run for the next 20 years. So now let's figure out, how do we figure out if this building's the right building for this quality of life amenity we just sucked into it, right? So again, I go back to, if this building was never donated, what would the process be for a community center? That's what I'm asking for. That process, independent of fitting into this building. We got this building and we shoehorned it into there. So it's just this cart before the horse, from my perspective, is what happened. And it may be where we end up because that's all we can afford anyway. And I'm good with that. I just don't know everybody's weighed in on that. Because it's been presented, here's what you got. And they're like, okay, thanks.
Well, I know they have met with individual members from stakeholder boards. As far as the school board specifically, since you brought them up, as well as I'm not going to be able to name them all. The professional women's group, the lumberyard, the library, the
Lions Club.
Lions Club. So they have went to different groups and got input as well from them.
Good.
So I do know that. I know the Maple Leaf Committee, or a member of the Maple Leaf Committee mentioned, hey, can we have some sort of display for the Maple Leaf history, in one of the rooms in there? And the committee said, yeah, that's a great idea, as well as booths back into that building like they used to have back when I first moved here. So
I can tell you, Scott, those two ladies have been living, breathing this project and have talked to numerous. We meet weekly, and every week they provide updates on several groups and individuals that they reach out to. They've certainly done their due diligence in going out to the community in front of groups and individually one-on-one and asking people for their feedback. So it's certainly, if nothing else about this project, you can definitely say that work has been done.
And it's not done. I mean,
Right,
it's been
it's
done, but it's not
ongoing.
done.
Right, that's
It's
why,
ongoing.
like I said, we still
Right.
meet weekly and they continue to bring in those updates.
Any other comments on the community center? Okay. Just real quick, I'd like to, I know it's getting late, I don't want to take up everybody's.
Can we just maybe talk a little bit more about not the center itself, but the process of the council as far as this goes? So what are we still looking at? I'm trying to anticipate how this is going to go.
So I'll be honest with you, I mean, obviously, you know, we set the agendas Thursday before each meeting. And I am, just like when we did the dog park, when we did Sullivan Square, all that, when it was recommended to put it on the council's agenda, whether for presentation or whatever, I don't ever stop that. I think it's okay to have a discussion one way or the other. It's okay to take a vote and get denied. We've done that numerous times. So I'm kind of leaning on that committee to tell me when they feel that they're ready to come. One, not only I would recommend to the committee before putting an agenda item on to come and give a presentation to the council in the formal council meeting setting and give the data that they've collected throughout this process and then go from there. But since they're an advisory committee, we set them up that way. I'm trying to follow that and take their advice and do it that way.
I know we don't vote in work sessions, but I was just trying to get more of a idea of, I feel like we don't have consensus yet. It doesn't mean that the vote wouldn't pass, but I told Casey that I felt it was important as a council if we could at least have consensus. That doesn't mean necessarily 5-0 or whatever, but I just feel that I don't know where we're at as a council on this right now.
I think it's definitely going to take. I mean, again, and I think I've told you, I've told Scott. You know, I come from a different perspective because I go to try to go to all your guys' committees as well as all the advisory committees as much as I can possibly go to. So I get the benefit of seeing them collecting the data throughout. The council hasn't seen the benefit of them presenting all the data together all at once. And so I want to give them the opportunity to come do that. And then,
Well, I understand. I'm all for that. I just meant this is our first chance that we've had to talk to each other. We haven't had that opportunity yet. I think this is it. And I don't know that we're going to have that opportunity again. It'll be a discussion item, obviously, if it's on an agenda, and we can discuss. I just want to make sure that I don't know where we're at tonight. We can't vote, so don't say what you think, but on that. But just trying to get a feel for where the council's at, not where the advisory group's at or where you're at necessarily, but where we're at. And have we said all there is there you want to say tonight?
Well, you know, I think, you know, if we get that input, and maybe that's the missing piece. So again, I'll just go back to, I think we got, you know, we kind of got the plan done before, you know, after we got the building. So if we come forward with all the data and all of the, you know, all the stakeholders' input, and it's very clear that this is the right community center for this community, I don't care what building it's going in. To me, that's secondary here. And that's hard to try to get across. I don't want the building torn down either. But if I didn't have on here that saving the Bauer building was a quality of life amenity anywhere on this stack. To me, it should be on there separately if it's something that's important to this council, right? So it's two separate issues, and I think we should address them separately, and ideally they come together. Maybe there's a compromise that you have to make that they come together, and then we'll do that. But if I see from what the committee presents that, yes, this looks like the community center that we want and need, it's an easy call. Hey, we got this great building that we can save, maybe get some grant funding for it, and it saves us money. So, but in my head, it's still two separate issues. And that's how I'm looking at it. And I think that's how the council should look.
If you go to somebody and say, thank you, like have a community center in your community. Yeah. Well, here's this bubble over their head, and they see this building, this grand building. And they're not necessarily looking at our building, it's what they want. You see what I mean? I mean, you say, you can ask people, you want a community center? Yeah, that'd be great. But you're not really knowing what they're thinking of what they really want.
But I think the committee's done more than just that. They've done more than just say, do you want a community center? They've went into
And that's what will come, that's what we'll see.
And the survey, the second one that went out, the specific question was, would you like to see the old gym at 720 Chapel turned into a community center? And it was 84% of the population responded with yes. So that question has been asked.
And was the plan presented to them at that time?
No.
no, because we did
No.
not want that.
That was
So
just,
Julie's point is, community center is ambiguous. It's different in everybody's mind. So until you tell them what that looks like, how can they actually tell them that's what they want? You know, it's like, yes. Because in my mind, the community center, I'm going to get to do all these things. Walking, trail, whatever. So yes, 84%. But if you said, well, all this is what's going to have in there, will you still get 84%? They go, wait a second.
You know, I think you got a good point, Scott, and I think that we can definitely do another survey on there. But I think and I'm just going to voice some of my frustration is when we talked to some people about that survey. Well, the wording was not. It's not like they're not going to ever accept any data we provide to them, anyways. So I think that's a great idea, and I think we definitely could do another survey. I mean, Lynn's great at them. She's rolled her eyes.
Go another survey next week.
But I think that'd be a great idea, and that'd be more data.
But that's more accurate data. I mean, who's going to say no to a community center? First of all, I don't know what's going to cost me. I know it's more than I have.
Well, that question was also
it was
asked.
also asked,
About
if
sales.
taxes need to be raised, would you prefer a 0.5 sales tax or a 4 mil property increase? And so
But
the
not
survey did give us a good base of information.
Yeah, it's every question you ask, and they give you some data. It's all
Right,
good.
right. And
But it's
There
how you
were
ask it, it's how you interpret
an
it.
overwhelming amount of written responses as well from those surveys that we were able to look at.
It was amazing at how many people actually.
I was shocked
Didn't something
because
just go out?
surveys, usually you don't get that kind
And
of.
the utility bills.
Just went out in the utility bill too, right? We just sent another.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
And we've also flirted with the idea of using the city text messaging capabilities of.
Of doing a survey through
Yeah.
the city text messaging.
Yeah,
Like,
yes,
sign
correct.
up.
We can do that.
Pretty good.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I think that'd be really good too.
So
I mean, the
we'll-
more feedback, the better,
Right.
obviously. And it's never too, we're not at the point where it's too late to get.
no, not at all.
Yeah, we talked about it last week that at least doing the survey through the text messages,
Yeah,
just because that might get a different set of population, and and then I think we could definitely put out the diagram of the building and ask that question as well.
And just list what the use cases are, right? So this is what it would be. This is what it would be able to do, right? So people can relate that to their own personal desires.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll get some feedback. Well, what about this? What about that? And you already have. But to me, and again, we got to separate it from the building if at all possible. I mean, ideally, because there'll be people that want to have some sales tax just to say the building and not put anything in it. Right? You're going to get that group like, I don't care what you do with it. I want to save it. So whatever you do is good. To me, it's a community center question. What do you want in a community center, and how much are you willing to pay to get that? And if it fits in the Bauer building, hey, guess what? We just saved you $1 million plus.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. And I've had all your guys' concerns. I really have. And I think that what I keep coming back to is that question. You know, if we're never going to be able to afford, a $5-6 million building, we don't want to spin our wheels too long for
Yep,
a
I
decade.
agree.
We could be enjoying one now,
I agree.
a version of one.
But if we get all the stakeholders in that room and then we discuss why we'll never be able to afford that, or we don't see that, and we think this is what we're going to be able to do for the next 10 years, then they can at least see what the thought was as to why we're moving forward.
You bet.
And whether they like it or not, they've been included in the process. They've had their chance to say they disagree and come up with alternatives. But then you get to a point where everybody's had their say, the majority moves forward, and we'll have some disgruntled people and have a bunch of happy people. So I don't know if that slows the process down. To me, there's no target date. I think we move as quickly as possible to try to do that, get to a point. Maybe you have to stick a stake in the ground so you make sure you get stuff done in time to get there. I think the grant question absolutely applies here, because every dollar you spend to remediate windows or mold, it comes off the construction cost, right? It's going to be a lower number of whatever we've got to go tax the citizens for. So leveraging that, I think at least come to a decision on yes, no, maybe, what that looks like. I think that's important to express to the citizens that it's either an opportunity or it's not.
Okay.
That's where I'm at, since you asked.
Thanks for asking.
It sounded like you really wanted an answer because he asked twice.
I do, because I think it's important. We work well together as a council, even when we disagree, and I think this is probably the first contentious thing that we've had.
I agree.
And I was thinking back to things that you and I voted against each other on, and they were contentious, like the trail and transient guest tax. There was some other stuff, but we work well together.
Right.
I don't want to be contentious, because
Right.
fundamentally, I believe we'll probably end up right where we're at.
Yeah.
I really do, just based on ability to afford, the size of the community, really what we can do in a community center. I just want to feel comfortable when we get there, that we've done everything. Everybody's had their say, and they may already have. So.
And I just keep hearing that, this has been done, that's been done, but then there's what we do, which is completely different than what we're talking about with the project when we look at it and pose it with everything else that's going on. I think we're doing that. I just want to make sure we're good to go forward.
And, I think, well, it's kind of like with the sidewalk, well, I never heard anything about this, and now you're picking up my yard.
Right.
And I think, the more people that are informed, then you're better off in the long run.
Oh, absolutely.
I agree,
That's why
but I'll add that not only did they go out in everybody's utility bills, which would be every household involved, it was also full page in the newspaper as well, just for people that might just grab that or whatever, as well as all the online stuff and the in-person stuff, and all that fun stuff. But I think in the near future, I'll probably ask that advisory committee to come forward and give a presentation at the council meeting with all the data that they've collected thus far.
I think they've done a fantastic job, and on the part I've seen, and there's 10 times behind the scenes. So, I mean, it's tremendous what they've done. But this is like one shot we get on a community center. I mean, this is one shot we get. It hadn't been done before, right? And this is what this council is going to do, and it's pretty much what it's going to be. You have to think about it that way. Mm-hmm. Your name's going to be on that, along with the citizens that voted for it, right? But you were the one responsible for the process to get there. Sure.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm concerned about.
Sure.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys voicing your concerns. They're definitely valid, and so.
It's the top of our list. We'll get there some way, shape, or form.
It's been a tough project because you've mentioned putting the cart before the horse, and there's no right or wrong order to get there.
One person's cart is the other person's horse.
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly. It's yeah.
Whoa.
That's true. It is. Every single one. We could have went out and got all the data we wanted, then came back and put it into a plan.
Yeah.
And they'll say, well, why didn't you guys kind of give us something to look at?
Right,
So we
exactly.
can get some ideas from.
And
I mean,
fair
we
enough.
decided to put something together so people have
And
at
actually,
least a
I think
basis
Jay
to go
pretty
on.
much kind of did preliminary so the committee could start thinking of it.
Right.
And kind of said, here, and the committee changed quite a bit.
So, you
Based on
know,
feedback,
it's-
so.
we could have gone about it either way. We just thought this was the best method. So there's something to start with. You have something to look at, not just an empty building.
Well, in defense of the committee members and the advisory committee, we weren't far enough along down in our strategic plan to even say, what are you talking about? You know, you're way off base. So I don't fault for that because there was no, I mean, we're developing at the same time. So we're here because of the timing of when we got the asset and moving forward on it. So it's nobody's fault.
Right.
To your point, it's like, we're here, let's figure it out.
Yeah.
I just will throw this caveat in there from what we've heard from both business owners and community members alike, or what has been reported to the committee, is people overwhelmingly do not want property taxes to pay for this one way or the other.
Yeah.
That's like the consistent message
Over and over again.
So you guys will hear that too. But
Well, and once it's placed on a ballot issue, Glenn's told us this before, you know, we, the council, we can't beat the drum one way or the other.
Right, right.
It's out there
Yeah.
for our esteemed members of the committee to go push that.
Yeah.
So once that property tax thing, and we've solved that, let's say it goes to sales tax, we need to be really careful though as a community to say it's free. Or thank God it's not that.
Right.
Thank God you didn't put, because it does cost either
Yep.
way. Somebody we're still paying for it. So those kids that are coming in for free, they're still paying to go there. Everybody's paying to go there. And that's why it probably seems better because I feel that it's more spread out than, I mean, there's people from out of town that could actually contribute
Right.
to the building, whereas you would have to buy property to contribute through mill levy
Yeah.
or ad valorem or whatever we call it. But-
don't say that word, Scott.
right. I get
You'll
it.
throw them off for the
So,
rest of
so
the
I
night.
understand.
I want to get to one more thing here. I got my little check mark on.
That's fine. I just want to, I mean, just be careful.
I agree.
Just me personally, I always try to think that it's not free. And when the budget guy comes and says, well, money's free, it's not free. This
Right.
is still a multi-million-dollar project. It's still going to cost the community a couple $1 million.
And to your point, we may have to ask for more sales tax to go do something else.
Right. That
in
was
2
my
years
main-
and 3 years. And so it's not a bottomless pit, for sure.
Correct. I would agree with that.
Anyways, that's off my soapbox.
Okay, I want to get to one more topic under quality of life. It sounds like this might take up till March to talk about quality of life. But the dog park and parks is the other kind of elephant in the room that I think for Glenn and I didn't even talk to him about this, but
No,
it's,
you didn't.
no, I didn't.
I saw the look.
We need some direction because the last council, one of the committees shouldn't have, but they did, went out and got some, what do you call those, huts?
Tea houses.
Oh,
Tea
the
houses.
that we got. Yeah.
We got,
One of the committee members. The other one did not.
yes, you are correct. You are correct.
Right.
It's funny how we always try to disassociate. from it.
It's a shelter.
Yeah,
And they're out by the public.
So the reason why I want to talk about that is because the intent was to purchase those. I think there's 2 of them.
There's 2. Yeah.
And if we're not going to do the dog park, which I'm okay with, then I'd like to have some direction from the council. If we have them, we've bought them, let's get them in use somewhere. And so that's why I wanted to go to that agenda item because that is something that we are currently sitting on right now.
How big are they?
Probably 10-foot in diameter.
Yeah, probably 10. Yeah, they're pretty good size. They're little shelter houses. I mean, that's what
They're the pre-manufactured, like you see on
Yeah.
the side of the road when you're driving. You know,
Yeah.
that people are selling sheds, and these are one
Yeah.
of those
Oh.
shed.
Are they pull in toilets?
No,
Yeah, just the roof.
Just
Yeah.
the yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Did you guys ever talk about Sullivan Square having any kind of like sheltered areas?
I don't think Sullivan Square would be a good fit. My personal opinion.
If you see these, it would look kind of.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be a good fit.
No, no.
I think if anything, like another, what everybody calls a Yogi Bear Park, that would be
Yeah,
or the pool park, or
Right, or
something like
of
that.
nature where you-
Or if there's any intention of this council putting in another park somewhere, then we just need to know that too, so we can maintain them and do what we need to. But it's 2 items that can be utilized, especially during a pandemic when people are outside and going out. and they can be movable. So even if you guys said, "Hey,
Okay.
let's get them out into the parks now,"
Oh, yeah.
later on they can be picked up
They're
and
not pulling a
moved.
pad or anything.
Yeah.
No, they're pretty easy to move. Yeah, our guys can move them around wherever we need
I mean,
them, so.
I think the park idea makes a lot of sense. If there's space, I mean, just for more sheltered space in the parks.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that, to me, where most people would probably have access to it.
And I hate to even bring this up, but I'm going to. What about, was it the Tom Swain Park?
Tom Swan.
Tom Swan, yeah.
The little one here by the lumber.
No, that's Tom's one.
Allen Park.
Oh, I'm sorry, Allen Park.
We're talking Allen Park.
It's got a big picnic table,
Does it-
shelter.
Does it have
He's got a
something
shelter
there?
Yeah,
down there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they got a
I
shelter
can't
out there.
remember if there
I
was.
think there is some outside picnic tables that you could use.
Yeah.
They had a big covered.
Oh yeah,
They
do. Yeah, that's
So
what-
can you guys think of any parks in town that doesn't have some sort of
No.
shelter?
No.
You got one on every one, that's the bad part.
Right.
Or somewhere where we could cheaply make a pocket park with a shelter? Just kind of a,
I know the library has thought about that somewhere around
Well, that's
the
a good idea.
library.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know where, but
Yeah.
I know Wendy has talked about.
Yeah, Wendy has
I don't
talked
know,
about.
They call them
outdoor area.
parklets now.
what?
Parklets?
A parklet?
Really? Okay.
Yeah, Johnson County has these little parklets, and sometimes they're around a service like a library or something else.
Oh, okay.
I just don't know where we'd put it.
Yeah, I don't know that there's
Yeah.
any space
Sure.
over there that it would actually go.
Isn't there space south of the library?
There is.
The red
But they're interested in
ball.
that, yeah, the barn back there, they've talked to me about that.
Huh. Maybe we should reach out to them and see what they.
Because they have
Talk
storage
to all the
needs.
entities you can think of and say,
Yeah.
you have a use for these.
Might be kind of bare, just that.
What about like, we don't really have many parks specifically on out by Heritage or north of town. You know, we have Park and Fire Tree, we have the Yogi Bear Park, the swimming pool park. I mean, even down farther south of town, we don't really have a park down there. I mean, can you guys think of any place, like I said, even a pocket park where a family can go?
About community garden or something like
Yeah,
that.
that's one thing I
We
think
could do.
open.
That may be a cool
Community
place for a
garden
shelter.
would be
Oh,
cool.
yeah.
There's
I
a.
think by library there's no.
Okay.
Right.
Brings up
Out there.
like-
Yeah, that might be the best.
You did pique my ears when you said, or my ears when you said Heritage. I've heard you live out there. I've heard a couple people, talk about they're isolated anyway from the highway, cutting them off. That might be. a good
I just don't know where, because Heritage now, their lots are built out. The last one was
Yeah.
built out 4 years ago.
Right.
So there's not really any spots that, they didn't even dead end a road. I mean, ideally, you would have at least an easement going into where a future development would go, and then maybe you could carve out a little area, make a grass patch, and put it there.
You got these soccer fields up across the cemetery, nothing
Yeah.
sheltered up there. I mean, there's a lot of, I walk by there sometimes, there's a lot of parents and kids out there, weather's not the best. Might be thinking about that spot.
Well, I think, because my personal opinion is, we might as well put them to use until
Yeah.
the dog park thing is either
Yeah.
either just off the table or we're going forward.
We need to prioritize on our list. Where's that?
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
the cost of each one?
Well, were they around $2,500?
Yeah, there
I
wasn't
mean,
much.
I think you probably go into thinking they're going to be permanent wherever they go, and then if the park comes back up again, you probably just.
Yeah, because really, you could just gravel underneath them. I mean, you don't really want to set them right on wood. You want to put them on gravel so it keeps the moisture from.
Sure.
Are they on pallets right now?
They're out at the utility.
Yeah, they're just sitting out in the parking lot out there.
Yeah, they're on the pavement.
I don't know if you ever noticed them, but they're just two structures that have been sitting there since we got them, probably a year ago. Thought we were gonna do a dog park.
Community garden, the soccer fields, I think. we ought to look
But that's the
at.
same area.
No,
Well,
it
across the
is.
street from each
they're
other.
across
Different
the
groups
street
of people would
Yeah.
use it
Right.
though.
Yeah.
They interact too.
Yeah, I
I
really
think
like the
would be
community
a
garden
really good
idea.
use.
One doesn't go there, one eventually should.
Yeah.
Because you want to put it with something else there with it. So
Right.
you
Yeah.
don't want it just by
Yeah.
itself. So the library doesn't really have anything else there. But they might want it too. I don't know.
I'd ask them.
So is that what you guys are kind of thinking? I mean, like I said, this isn't a council agenda thing anyway. So, one at the community garden, one at the soccer fields.
Fine with that.
Yeah, I'd deal with that.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that.
That was the big reason I wanted to bring that up. Is because I've been thinking about those for a while. I was starting letting people use them. They paid for them. So. Glenn, you good with that?
Yeah, I mean,
Public Works.
Rob and I have talked about it, put them in the parks and whatever, but, I think we got some.
What about that lot we're trying to sell up on 56 Highway? What if we made just a pool and little spot with one of those there?
I was thinking about that, but I don't know if we want that right on the highway.
I mean, at least people coming through, if they pack their lunch, like
Yeah.
my parents used to do.
Yeah, we don't have any liability.
Lunch the whole time.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I just hate to put them both all in one spot. I'd like
Right.
to service, serve as many. I wish we had something out by Heritage, because
There's no, I don't think there's any land out there. I can't think of any place that would go. I really don't.
I would check with the library.
Mm-hmm.
See what they might have a need for it, and then, maybe start going down there. Because that's just the one that I've heard specifically say something about something like that, so I don't want to say, well, let's stick them over here and completely ignore that.
Okay.
request.
we'll do that.
Okay.
You guys all good on this for now?
So do we think then December, that work session will be another one of these, or do you have another topic that
We're gonna go something off of strategic planning.
Yeah, it'll be one of the other two.
Yeah, we'll probably hit on one of the other two, so we don't beat. I mean, honestly, you could talk about any one of these for
right?
hours upon hours. But I want to say we go to a new one.
I just recommend everybody come back. Maybe we finish this off by prioritizing that list we have. Just going, okay, so if we want to publish this to the community at some point, all that stuff ought to be on there kind of with the current priority list. So the things we just listed, let's come back and say, see if we can come up with an agreement on what those are, and then we'll move on to the next discussion on economic development or infrastructure on the next one.
Can we all get an email list so we all have the same content we're going off of?
An email list on
What we wrote, the
What we-
topics tonight.
for the quality of life.
Right.
Oh,
Did you write
yeah.
those down?
I did.
Everything we
I wrote it
identified.
down.
I was scrambling looking what you guys were
I wrote
looking
it
at
down
for
too,
the
but I
first 5
probably did a
minutes.
different form.
Well, if you want legislative committee to still kind of work with this or not, I mean, that might help us,
That's fine.
Plan out the next
Yeah, let me know
session.
when your guys' meetings,
Okay.
because then we can work.
because we'll have a meeting before that if everything works out. And
Okay.
kind of plan the next session with what, and type this up and send it out, or send it to Laura so then she can.
Okay.
I personally thought.
The work session. Yeah. We'll have one on 22nd.
I was just saying, I personally love that this is a legislative committee. It's like an actual committee item.
We got
Yeah.
questions
So
about it.
here's what I think makes sense. I think it makes complete sense that the council president ought to be responsible for leading the strategic plan. I mean, it just makes sense.
Sounds good to me. No, I agree.
Community centers
I
off.
agree with Scott.
Who gets voted as council president next
You
year?
talk about having, sort of keeping it on our minds year after year after year, and that just kind of, if it's as, strategic planning is as big of a commitment as we want it to be, maybe that's just always.
I think it
that
should
just
be.
always falls on the council president to kind of keep it going.
So can we set then the topic to be economic development and save infrastructure for last to give staff more
Yeah,
time
I
to
agree
get those
with that.
priorities
Yep.
to each department? And maybe community development might have some priorities for economic development, so we can talk to Ed. I can email Ed and ask him. That way you have it in your heads for December
Yeah,
and start thinking
good call.
about it now.
Okay.
If that's okay with you.
Yep.
Okay. Can't tell with your mask on.
Do what?
Can't tell with your mask on.
He's dim to my eyes. If I blink twice, it's a yes. If I blink once long, it's hell no.